He's the former president and publisher of the Sun Herald, and now he's on the radio. Welcome to Coast View with Ricky Matthews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome to Coast View, the show that celebrates the men and women who are making coastal Mississippi such a great place to live, work, and play. Hey, before we get into today's show today, I just wanted to mention that Dave Dennis, we had just such a great Coast View session with him a few months ago. He started Specialty Contractors. He ran for governor. He's consummately involved in the community. In that conversation, he talked about his wife, Jane, who had been battling Alzheimer's. And unfortunately, she lost her battle last week. So I just wanted to send my condolences to Dave and his wonderful family and say that he's in our thoughts and prayers. Jane was literally one of the smartest women I have ever met. And Jane and Dave made such a dynamic duo. And it's really sad news that she lost her battle. So anyway, condolences to Dave and his family. And also Kyle and I are going to have a conversation, I think, next week because he's getting ready he plays the music for the Saints games at the Superdome. And I've learned last week they actually pipe actually not just music, obviously, but crowd noise into the Superdome. And that's going to be really interesting to see how that all plays out. He's actually going to a meeting with the New Orleans Saints today. And so we look forward to talking to Kyle next week more about that experience. So now we're going to move on to the show. I've got an old friend today, someone who I've always admired. We worked together for many, many years. Her name is Laura Hasty. Laura, come on into the conversation. Good morning. How are you doing?
Good morning, Ricky. I'm good.
It's good to see you.
Good to see
you. You're the co-owner of the ad group. And there's so much to talk about as it surrounds not only the ad group, but also your years before the ad group. You and your partner, Robin Stevens, started that firm back in 1995. And as you described it, she's sort of the creative genius behind the curtain. And, you're this person who's a master at developing relationships. You're sort of you help build the business. You're into client relations. But you guys make a great team, don't you?
Absolutely. We complement one another. She, like you said, is the creative genius behind the scenes, and I'm more out with the client and developing the business. We've just had a great run. We were real fortunate. We worked together for another agency in a little office in Bay St. Louis. We worked together for 3 or 4 years, and when I made the decision to start an agency, I told her that I was going to leave, and she said, "Well, can I come with you?" I said, "Come on," and the rest is history. It was 25 years ago.
Well, look, I shared this last week, but I've had this opportunity because of this show to really get to know people behind the public face, and make no bones about it. We're moving fast in our lives, and it's sometimes difficult to really get to know the people who we're doing business with and who we're coming in contact with. And it's so interesting to prepare for this show because I'm learning things about you, like I do every guest, that I didn't know. Be able to dive deep into who you are, where you came from, what your influences in your life were. But one of the things I'm developing is this shared characteristics of the people that I talk to. For example, most of the people I talk to have empathy for others. They have this amazing ability to communicate with other people and to build relationships. And you've done that so well over the many years. They believe in the power of team. They realize that the team is what ultimately develops, accomplishes the goal. And they believe in that, and they're able to bring people together in a way that can really achieve goals. They have courage. What you and Robin did back in 1995 to start this agency, as we go back and look at that, it took courage to do that because you were stepping out and It was just a bold decision. And what I say about the courage is it's usually bolstered by dogged determination. You just really want to do it big time. There's a lot more qualities, and we can get into some of those as we get into the conversation, but they also have a zest for life. They just really have a passion for what they're doing. They have a passion for the community. They have a passion for family. And it just shows in the way that they communicate. So there's a lot to talk about as it relates to you. So you were born in Houston.
As was Robin.
Say it again?
Robin also was born in Houston, Texas.
Really?
Yeah.
And what are the chances of that?
I know.
You grew up in Hattiesburg.
Correct.
And you made it to the coast just before Hurricane Camille in 1969. Tell me about that part of your life.
Well, my parents owned the first, you've seen these beauty supply houses, and they opened the first ones they had one in Hattiesburg, one in Laurel, one here on the coast, and one in Mobile. And it had gotten to where it was just too much, and they hired other people. But they wanted, obviously, the one on the coast was the most successful. So they wanted to migrate down here to the coast. So, all my family is from Hattiesburg, still have a great deal of family in Hattiesburg. So we moved down in June. Camille hit in August. And I was 13. We lived out north of where the interstate is now. And, we didn't know anything about hurricanes, really. Hattiesburg had not been affected at that point in my life. So we moved down here, and then this storm comes barreling through, and my parents taped up all the windows of their business, and the roof blew off. So, they had a lot of destruction and damage. And I remember driving down Highway 90 when it was passable. Just my brother and my mother and father and I driving down 90 and looking at all the destruction. And my brother said, you know what, the next storm, I'm going to either sit on the steps or the toilet, because that's all that's left of these homes. Because that was it. It was just total destruction. But we came back, we survived it and built back, and I've been here ever since.
So your parents were entrepreneurs, and they must have had a big influence on you. Tell me about that.
Well, they started saw a need to help beauty shops develop and to have products for these beauty shops. So they sold wholesale to beauty shops, the product. My father would install beauty shops like their shampoo bowls, their hair dryers, and help them design, if you will, their vision for their beauty shop. And this was back in the day where every woman, at least once a week, went and got her hair done with curlers, sat under a dryer. That's when, and women wanted to be pretty for the weekend and for church. So, it was a booming business for them. And they owned that business until the mid to late 70s.
Laura, my grandparents were in the salon business. They owned a beauty salon called El Dustin Beauty Salon on Cervantes and Pensacola.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, they were very successful at that. I guess I want to say the 60s, the 70s, maybe part of the 80s, but it was as you pointed out, it was a good time for salons, and your parents apparently rode that wave pretty big time. So What did they teach you about work ethic and so on?
Well, I started working for my parents when I was 14 after school and in the summer. They paid my brother and I a salary, and, it was the first taste of working for your money earned.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And we saved our money, and, we were able to buy things. And of course, I wanted clothes. My brother was into motorcycles. So, but we got a taste of, being able to support ourselves with needs, or things that we wanted. And I think that's real important to teach young people. And I don't think enough young people get that right now.
So I'm actually curious, so your story is inspiring whether you're a man or a woman. But I'm just curious, at the time that you went on to start into radio sales, did you feel a disadvantage as a woman, or did you always believe you could achieve anything you wanted to achieve in your life?
Well, I'm one of these kind of people that if somebody tells me I can't do it, I'm going to prove them wrong. And I started out, there was a genius in radio, and you probably remember him. His name was Bob Lima.
I remember him very well.
Yeah, he was my mentor, and he actually developed a position for me when I was hired as sales traffic director. And this was before sales, and I had to keep up. This was when there were 3 medias. You had the newspaper, the TV station, and VMIQID. And I had to keep up with the projections and the sales amounts, if you will, manually. It was before computers. So I did that for a few years, and he came to me and he said, Laura, you really just have too much energy to sit behind a desk all the time. Why don't you think about getting into sales? Because you're not going to be able to make any more money doing what you're doing right now. Well, I had children to support, so, my ears perked up, and I said, well, tell me about this sales. Do you think I can do it? He said, I can't believe you're asking me that. Of course you can do it, And when you get into sales, probably the one thing that really slows you down is the paperwork. Well, see, I knew all of that, so I didn't have to worry about that bogging me down. So let's do this, Laura. So
this is Laura Hastings. She's the co-owner of the Ad Group, and we're having sort of a look back on her life and all of her accomplishments along the way, which are significant, as you'll see as we go deeper into this conversation. But when we come back, we'll talk about forming her own ad agency and some of the work that she's done along the way. So this is, again, Laura Hastings, and her partner, Robin Stevens, and her have done some amazing work. We'll see you after this break.
The stay-at-home orders, the new state flag, the mask mandates, the protests and riots in many of our nation's cities, the battle for the White House. So far, 2020 has been a year like no other, and only one radio station has covered it all from a Mississippi point of view, SuperTalk Mississippi. And hang on, because who knows what 2020 will bring us next. Whatever it is, SuperTalk will be right here to deliver it to you live. Listen in all 82 counties statewide. SuperTalk Mississippi.
Be sure to go by this station's website and check out the half-off deals. Audubon Zoo tickets for just $15. That's half price. $30 zoo tickets for just $15. Again, go to this station's website or Facebook. Look for the half-off deals logo to purchase yours now.
This is House Call for Health. There may be no greater medical mystery and no greater tragedy than sudden infant death syndrome. It used to be known as crib death. For no apparent reason, a presumably healthy sleeping baby dies. Medical experts don't have clear-cut answers to what causes sudden infant death, or SIDS, but now they have 2 risk factors: smoking and drinking during pregnancy beyond the first 3 months. A new study finds that babies whose mothers drank alcohol and smoked tobacco after the first trimester are at far greater risk of SIDS, 12 times greater. Previous studies showed a risk of smoking and drinking individually. This study says doing both drastically increases the danger. The research is sponsored by the National Institutes of Health, which is calling for greater publicity about the danger and improved screening at the very beginning of a pregnancy. For more health news, go to foxnewshealth.com. House Call for Health. I'm Lisa Brady, Fox News.
Home is meant to be our safe place, but heart attacks and strokes don't stay home. Don't avoid the ER out of anxiety. Don't die of doubt. Don't stay silent, and don't stay home. If you have an emergency, call 911. When seconds count, the hospital is the safest place to be.
Hey, want to come work for the #1 radio group on the coast? TeleSouth Media has a great opportunity for an outside sales consultant. Get paid while having fun and work in the exciting, fast-paced world of radio. We have award-winning stations like 97.9 CPR Rocks, 105.9 The Monkey, G96.7, SuperTalk 103.1, and 103.5 The Possum. Take the first step towards a new and rewarding career. Submit your resume to Jesse@telesouth.com. That's JESSE@telesouth.com. TeleSouth Media is an equal employment opportunity employer.
Everyone knows the only thing better than pizza is free pizza, and right now, buy a $10 gift certificate to CiCi's Pizza for only $5. It's like buying a pizza and getting a pizza for free. Go to our station's website or Facebook. Look for the Half Off Deals logo to purchase this amazing deal right now.
Talking to the people that help make the coast such a unique place to live. This is Coast View with Ricky Matthews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome back to Coast View. We're having a conversation with Laura Hasty. She's a co-owner of the ad group with her partner, Robin Stevens. And we're just kind of taking a journey through her life because she's done and seen so much history here in coastal Mississippi, especially as it relates to gaming. And we'll get into that here in just a second. I love the way you were talking about this, that by the time you got into radio sales, you sort of worked as a traffic cop, so to speak, behind the scenes. You knew how all the paperwork connected together. And as I was telling you offline, is that I always believe that you have to take each and every step along the way. You can't skip steps. People who skip steps eventually have to come back and pay for it at some point. Correct. And so you're just kind of building this foundation that continue to serve you as you started in the ad agency business. So tell me about radio sales. How did you fit into that?
Well, I was fortunate to have some very good mentors and people that had been doing it for a number of years. And, they taught me and I was real skittish at first, because now I was going to have to be out, and proving myself. And the owner of the radio stations, he was just a wonderful guy. He always was good to me. And he sent me, I'll never forget, my first paycheck, or commission check actually, in sales. He sent me a note saying, "Keep up the good work." And that, I believe in teamwork, and, you have to, people have to feel part of the team, and they're going to work better. They've got to feel as though they have a vested interest, which, I think, I always like to refer people that work with the ad group as not my employees, but my team members and people that I work with, because I couldn't do it without them. And it's always a team effort. If you're going to accomplish anything, you've got to work with people in a fashion that makes them feel worthy.
So you're trucking along, you're sort of mastering radio sales. How did you end up getting in the ad agency business?
Well, I worked in sales for a few years. Then I got into sales management. Then I was offered a position with an ad agency in sales, and I thought, well, I probably need to make a jump. I felt like I had mastered what I could in radio, and I was kind of getting a little burnout, I felt. So I wanted a new adventure, and I had 2 children that I was supporting, and I wanted to just branch out, and went to work for another ad agency and landed an account that was a casino. Well, let's go back a little bit. I had a friend that worked for the Restaurant Association. She called me and said, we're going to get gambling legalized, dockside gambling, and can you help us? I said, sure. We basically worked pro bono, but we wanted to get in on the ground floor because I had lived here all of my life. And for the first time in my life, I was really considering moving away because there was an industry, there wasn't a lot of retail. When the worst thing that happened in the Mississippi Gulf Coast was when I-10 came through, because people had no reason to stop we had always been considered a sleepy community where the stars would come. But when they built I-10, people kept going. They weren't stopping. There was no reason. We didn't have the beautiful blue water. We didn't have a lot of the things that Florida or Alabama had. So gambling was paramount to revitalizing this area, in my opinion. And I had never even been into a casino, never been to Vegas, so I didn't really know a lot about it, but I knew that I was starving like a lot of other people, and we needed to do something. So worked on that campaign. It had already passed in Hancock County. And Harrison County, you know, you had a lot of the church groups and people that were opposed to it. But from a business person standpoint, I knew how vital it was. And we worked on it, and it passed. And then I landed a casino, which was Casino Magic in Bay St. Louis. And great people, they were from Minnesota. They made fun of my accent. I made fun of theirs. And they told me, I said, look, I don't know anything about a casino. And they said, well, you know what? We don't know anything about advertising. Stick with us. We'll work together. We'll make it happen. We opened Casino Magic in October of 1994. And in June of 95, we opened Casino Magic in Biloxi. So in 8 months' time, we opened 2 casinos. And, you know, they were great people to work with. And when they went in-house was when I left the agency that Robin and I both worked for. And that's when we started our own agency.
So let's go back just a tab. One of the cool things about this show is I've been able to have the opportunity to talk to some of the stalwarts in the community from a leadership point of view, people who were involved in that whole dockside gaming immersion. Fofo had great stories to tell about the old days, you know, going into a grocery store and seeing the slot machines. And then you had Broadwater and the Fiesta and all these places that had it. It wasn't actually until 1969. There had been a lot of efforts to stop it, and sometimes it's sort of behind the scenes and people just sort of accepted it. But it wasn't until Camille hit, which is ironically the year you got here, that gaming as we knew it, as you know, as the history had established it, was kind of wiped off the face of the earth. It kind of came back in you know, back rooms and whatever, but never in the way that it was you know, throughout the history of the Gulf Coast. So from 1969 up until it was approved, lots of efforts had been underway to try to change this and ultimately make it legal. I had good conversation with Gerald Blessey about it, and Rick Carter and Terry Green. We had the contribution of the Pride of Mississippi and all of that had to it. Roy Anderson and the efforts to build Casino Magic and how quickly they did it. And
yeah, and Casino Magic, I don't mean to interrupt you, but it was the very first casino on a barge in the world.
Yeah.
That was Marlon Torgeson, and then of course Grand and others followed.
Right. The stories these guys tell about how fast the gaming industry emerged in Costa Rica. We remember it, obviously. I was at the Sun Herald. You ultimately ended up, once you moved over and formed your own agency, you had 5 casinos as clients at the same time. That's actually unheard of these days. How did you guys do that?
Well, and they say never say never, but I can tell you unequivocally, I will never have 5 at the same time again. It was that was probably 3 or 4 years of my life that I was home maybe 4 hours a day. We worked 7 days a week, 18, 20 hours a day, because, when you represent casinos, you are not 9 to 5. It's 24/7. And we had different teams. We had over 15 employees, and, different teams worked with different, but then as owners, Robin and I were involved in all of it. And at times we felt a little torn, but Robin and I have always been very honest and forthcoming. We believe in that. It may not be what someone wants to hear, but it's the truth. And so we were always forthright with our clients, saying we work with this client and this client. And it didn't matter to these people. And we were local. And when they needed us, we were there.
Well, what happened, Laura, you guys established yourself, and then ultimately you and Robin, through your business, the ad group, established yourself as kind of specialists in this area.
Correct.
You knew the local media market. You were beginning to understand, as they were really beginning to take on database marketing and all that was involved in that. But I was there, obviously, at the Sun Herald, watching all that emerge. And what was interesting about this is I knew how competitive they were, against one. Now, look, they worked together for the good of the industry. But when you got into the issues of their marketing strategies and their approaches toward their business, they were highly competitive and really smart.
Yes.
So to have 5 casino customers at one time is a real testament, not only to your determination, but the fact that they trust you. Think about that for a minute. I mean, I bet you look back on it and think, how in the world did you and Robin do that?
Well, and she and I had many conversations about it. And, these were people that we weren't necessarily, or clients that we weren't going after. These were clients that were coming to us. So, we made them assured that everything was confidential, and we would sign any confidentiality agreement they wanted, because it's their business, and we understand that. So
this is Laura Hasty. She is the co-owner of the ad group. The current customers are folks like Cruising the Coast, the City of Biloxi, Silver Slipper, Scarlet Pearl, Keesler Federal Credit Union, and others. When we come back, we can continue the story. Your home was destroyed in Hurricane Katrina. You helped with so many of us push to get land-based gaming. We're going to tell that story and the continued growth of your agency when we come back. This is Laura Hastings, and we'll see you after this break.
SuperTalk. Nobody keeps Mississippi informed like we do. With 12 stations covering all 82 counties. If it happens in your state, we're on top of it. The news, the weather, the sports, and the talk that's important to you. The issues that matter to you, your family, and your bank account. It's all right here. And when you're away from home, depend on the SuperTalk app and supertalk.fm to stay in the know. We're proud to serve our fellow Mississippians. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
We know that we're asking Americans to do a lot right now. So we're asking everyone to be selfless for others so that we can protect those who are most susceptible to this virus.
A question I often get asked is, why should young people care about the spread of coronavirus? Well, we know that people with underlying medical conditions over the age of 60 are at highest risk, but they've got to get it from somebody.
Social distancing is really physical separation of people.
It's what we refer to when we ask people to stay at least 6 feet apart.
Not going to bars, not going to restaurants, not going to theaters where there are a lot of people. It all just means physical separation so that you have a space between you and others who might actually be infected or infect you.
We all have a role to play in preventing person-to-person spread of this disease, which can be deadly for vulnerable groups. For more information on how you can social distance, please go to coronavirus.gov.
Hey, I'm Steve Azar, and you never know who or what you'll hear when I spend a Mississippi Minute with my friends. We are with the fabulous Norbert Putnam, as he played on so many hit records, you can't count them, and produced for some of the biggest acts ever. Norbert, Elvis.
And I want to tell you about Presley. He had 2 different voices. He would sit and talk to me in a very calm, low voice. And we were at Stack's one night, and we were having lunch. We always had lunch at midnight because he was nocturnal. We sat there and we have our sandwiches, and at 1 o'clock, he looked up. He said, "Hey, Put, come on, it's time for me to go be Elvis." And he stood up, and a much deeper voice, he put on his macho voice. "Hey, fellas, it's 1 o'clock. Let's get cracking, okay?"
In a Mississippi Minute. Be sure to check out In a Mississippi Minute with me, Steve Azar, right here on SuperTalk Mississippi, Amazon Alexa, and now on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher.
Anybody can be a firefighter. Male, female, younger, older.
We have school teachers. We have Leaders in business.
Is me, you, anyone that wants to be.
There is no typical firefighter.
Everyone knows the only thing better than pizza is free pizza, and right now, buy a $10 gift certificate to CiCi's Pizza for only $5. It's like buying a pizza and getting a pizza for free. Go to our station's website or Facebook. Look for the Half Off Deals logo to purchase this amazing deal right now.
We give HPV vaccine to children at 11 or 12 years of age. I have 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls, and I've given the vaccine to all of them.
Get out of the house and over to Big Play today. 2 massive arcades, bowling, go-karts, 2 mini golf courses, a 2-story state-of-the-art laser tag arena, bumper cars, and right now get a $50 game card for only $25. Visit our station's Facebook and print on demand so you can play at Big Play Entertainment Center now. These deals won't last long, so make sure you get your half-off deal. Big Play Entertainment Center, Highway 90, Biloxi. Bowl, play, eat. Go to our station's Facebook to get your half-off deal now.
The stay-at-home orders, a new state flag, the mask mandates, the protests and riots in many of our nation's cities, the battle for the White House. So far, 2020 has been a year like no other, and only one radio station has covered it all from a Mississippi point of view, SuperTalk Mississippi. And hang on, because who knows what 2020 will bring us next. Whatever it is, SuperTalk will be right here to deliver it to you live. Listen in all 82 counties statewide. SuperTalk Mississippi.
He's the former president and publisher of the Sun-Herald, and now he's on the radio. Welcome to Coast View with Ricky Matthews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome back to Coast View. We have Laura Hasty with us today. She's the co-owner of the ad group with her partner, Robin Stevens. You know, Laura's sort of the account manager. She helps build the business. You're probably a jack of all trades, I guess, when you think about yourself. And then Robin Stevens is working behind the scenes as a creative genius. And they have been the dynamic duo together as they have continued this business now for 25 years. 25 years. Time flies, doesn't it, Laura?
It sure does. When you're having fun and enjoy what you do, yeah, it's great.
So you have, even though having 5 casinos like we were just talking about, what you described, those 7 days a week, 20 hours a day, very rarely getting home, it almost killed you, didn't it?
It did. And, you know, I think that Katrina put my life and many others in perspective. I lost everything when I'm over in Alabama watching national news and I see one of my accounts sitting on another one, which was the President Casino sitting on top of the Holiday Inn. You know, it was really eye-opening, and it changed my way of thinking, and I think a lot of others.
But see, you know, we talk about this all the time on this show. In this pandemic moment, to some extent, we have a competitive advantage against, as it relates to comparing ourselves to other markets. And the reason why is because Katrina and the other, I would say, disasters we've had to face along the way has built a real resiliency into our DNA. So you lost your home in Katrina. You saw your the businesses that you worked for literally destroyed. And you were in a position where you had to decide what you're going to do. And some people might have curled up in a corner and decided to, you know, I don't know what I'm going to do. I can't get out of this mess. You didn't do that. Tell me what you did.
Well, initially, I did do that for maybe.
We all did initially.
You know, because of the shock. You leave home with 3 days worth of clothes. You think you're going to come back and pick up limbs in your yard. And my home was just devastated. And, you know, I'd worked so hard, as all of us had. Now, fortunately, the people we worked with, no one lost their home other than me. And I lived up in my office for 2 weeks. But, you know, I got a call from several people that were on this committee to get the casinos land-based. And they said, go to Jackson with us. And I said, all right, might as well. I do have a car. So we went up there, and that was my first taste of politics. And it was quite interesting. And I remember getting into trouble with an interview, but I didn't realize it was an interview at the time. I was talking with someone that was up there that was a journalist, and, we were fighting a lot of the political foes from other parts of the state that consider us the coast. And, they were all about, well, how's this going to help me? And what's it going to do for me? And casinos, we don't need them. And I couldn't believe, because when we first got casinos, Mississippi was 50th in the United States for economic development. 2 years later, we were number one in economic growth in the whole United States. And I made the comment, well, that was casinos that did that. It wasn't cotton. And it kind of really, I probably shouldn't have said that because I think it offended some people, but it was factual in that the casinos have really provided so much opportunity, and we needed to get these people back to work. There were 15,000 people out of work. Vendors, I mean, it's a domino effect. Charities, the casinos donate an awful lot of money to charities, and that had pretty much been halted. So, I was looking at being destitute, as were other people. But if we were going to get back to some kind of normalcy, we had to get these people back to work, because the casinos are the number one economic engine and employers for this area. And, we really had some good help with Tunica and Philadelphia, because they showed up for these hearings in Jackson. And they said, we're not going to fight this. We're not going to try to come back and get it for us. You need to get our coast back to work. And so we were, and fortunately, our governor, Haley Barbour, he was 200% behind us, did everything he could to help. And Bobby Moat, all these people worked tirelessly. And here us little vagabonds traveling up to Jackson with just very few clothes left. And the number one rule was we couldn't answer our cell phones in these meetings unless it was our insurance adjuster.
So we got it passed, and, the rest is history. We were able to open back up again, and you were able to sort of rebuild your agency. Tell how did the big three come about?
Okay.
Tell what the big three is.
The big three, when after Katrina, there was very little tourism efforts as far as advertising the Mississippi Gulf Coast. We needed people to know that we were alive and well and kicking. And I get a call one day from a genius in advertising named Reed Geis. And Reed is a phenomenal visionary. He doesn't look at the way things are, but how they can be. And Reed called me and said, look, have you been noticing what's going on with tourism? And I said, well, I didn't think there was anything. He said, you're right. We need to change that. So he said, are you open to working with Ted and I on trying to revitalize tourism? I said, oh, absolutely. Count me
Ted
out.
Reeman.
Yeah, Ted Reeman.
Mm-hmm.
And another visionary, a little vocal at times, but, both Ted, Reed, and I, we would get into shouting matches. But when the dust settled, we always did what was good for our community, more so than for ourselves. And so we got together and we talked about it. Well, I started showing up for tourism meetings, their board meetings. And I knew several of the board members, and they were like, why are you here? Because they were open meetings. And I said, well, I just want to keep, up to date on what's going on. I went to these meetings for almost 2 years. Finally, and the agency they had was out of the market. They didn't have a clue as to how to market us. And we're a different breed down here, and you need people that understand what kind of breed we are to promote it. So they took it out for bids. Reed and Ted and I went for it, and we got it. We got the account.
I was always amazed by that. So here you have Reed with the Geis agency, and then you have Ted with his agency and you with your agency competing with each other in a big way, actually, for either the casino business or you name it. But the fact that you guys were able to join forces, that is so unusual that you were able to do that.
And I really thoroughly enjoyed working with them. And we, I think among the tourism commissioners, we had the respect. They knew all of us, and they knew that our mission was to promote the Mississippi Gulf Coast. And we did make money, but then we had another little hiccup come in 2010 with BP. So, we had many discussions with tourism. The state obviously got involved. And we went to them and said, we have got to promote that we're open for business. This is another Katrina, and we can't let people think that we've got oil on our beaches and we're killing all the wildlife. And, we've got to tell the story. So the state took it out for bids for an advertising campaign through the state. And we went after it, and who better to promote the Gulf Coast? So we got it. So that was our second venture. And that went on. We did that for about a year and a half.
Yeah. Again, it's very unusual, but I know each of you very well. And I know what I've had the opportunity to work with each of you separately for a number of years. But the fact that you guys joined forces, it was a business venture for you, but it was also an opportunity to do something important for coastal Mississippi by bringing these three people, yourself, Ted, and Reed, together in a way that could passionately promote coastal Mississippi and overcome some of the objections that we were getting during those difficult times. It's pretty amazing. Hey, so when we come back, this is Laura Hastings for the ad group. When we come back, we're going to talk about your community involvement, because you've all throughout your life, you've always given back to the community. I want to hear more about what makes that tick. We'll see you after this break.
Follow SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1 on Facebook. Facebook.com/SuperTalk MS Coast 103.1.
Thousands of Bulldog fans have subscribed to the Thunder and Lightning podcast. Have you? On each episode, Brian Haydad and Joel Coleman give you an inside look at your Mississippi State Bulldogs. The Thunder and Lightning podcast is free and available on demand at supertalk.fm and on your smartphone. Just search for Thunder and Lightning on iTunes, Google Play, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Thunder and Lightning from SuperTalk, Mississippi, covering the Bulldogs like no one else.
This is House Call for Health. There may be no greater medical mystery and no greater tragedy than sudden infant death syndrome. It used to be known as crib death. For no apparent reason, a presumably healthy sleeping baby dies. Medical experts don't have clear-cut answers to what causes sudden infant death, or SIDS, but now they have two risk factors: smoking and drinking during pregnancy beyond the first 3 months. A new study finds that babies whose mothers drank alcohol and smoked tobacco after the first trimester are at far greater risk of SIDS, 12 times greater. Previous studies showed a risk of smoking and drinking individually. This study says doing both drastically increases the danger. The research is sponsored by the National Institutes of Health, which is calling for greater publicity about the danger and improved screening at the very beginning of a pregnancy. For more health news, go to foxnewshealth.com. House Call for Health. I'm Lisa Brady, Fox News.
We know that we're asking Americans to do a lot right now. So we're asking everyone to be selfless for others so that we can protect those who are most susceptible to this virus.
A question I often get asked is, why should young people care about the spread of coronavirus? Well, we know that people with underlying medical conditions over the age of 60 are at highest risk, but they've got to get it from somebody.
Social distancing is really physical separation of people.
It's what we refer to when we ask people to stay at least 6 feet apart.
Not going to bars, not going to restaurants, not going to theaters where there are a lot of people. It all just means physical separation so that you have a space between you and others who might actually be infected or infect you.
We all have a role to play in preventing person-to-person spread of this disease, which can be deadly for vulnerable groups. For more information on how you can social distance, please go to coronavirus.gov.
SuperTalk. Nobody keeps Mississippi informed like we do. With 12 stations covering all 82 counties. If it happens in your state, we're on top of it. The news, the weather, the sports, and the talk that's important to you. The issues that matter to you, your family, and your bank account. It's all right here. And when you're away from home, depend on the SuperTalk app and supertalk.fm to stay in the know. We're proud to serve our fellow Mississippians. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
You've been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. You have to carefully monitor your health for the rest of your life, and you have an increased risk of developing cardiovascular disease.
Cut.
Type 2, take 2.
Action.
You've been diagnosed with a new purpose, to fight for the amazing life you made for yourself, to look that risk of heart disease square in the face and say, no, not me. You've been given a new opportunity to live. Get started at NoDiabetesByHeart.org.
Down? Here's your prescription for a daily dose of good news and positive vibes. Good Things with Rebecca Turner. Every afternoon, Rebecca highlights all the good things happening right here in the state you call home. Daily exposure to Good Things with Rebecca Turner may cause smiling, feelings of positivity, happiness, and even laughter. When you experience these symptoms, tell your friends to listen.
Okay.
Weekdays starting at 2 p.m. here on SuperTalk Mississippi and now on Amazon Alexa devices. Talking to the people that help make the coast such a unique place to live. This is Coast View with Ricky Matthews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome back to Coast View. We have Laura Hasty, who is a co-owner of the ad group, and with her partner, Robin Stevens. They started back in 1995, so 25 years of going strong. They've had to overcome adversity along the way. We've had our share of disasters here in coastal Mississippi, that's for sure. But as I said at the beginning, people who I talk to on this show, they're courageous. They have a dogged determination to want to make a difference. They have passion. They have a zest for life. But I think one of the things they all share as well is a love of community. No matter how tough things might get, we love our community. And Katrina taught us that buildings don't make a community, the people make a community. It's the people that make this such a special place. That's why, once you got here, you might have grew up in Hattiesburg, you might have been born in Houston, but boy, the coast of Mississippi's home, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's a community like no other, second to none.
So you've been active, you've been super active in the community. The list is too long to even begin to share. The Women's Center for Nonviolence, Salvation Army, American Heart Association, there's a lot there. What I'm curious about is what drives your commitment to want to give back to the community?
Well, I think a community is only as strong, as you pointed out, as its volunteers. And volunteerism is very, very vital to any community. And I think the Mississippi Gulf Coast people get it. We couldn't have, come back from Katrina or the BP oil spill as we did had it not been for the volunteers. Because our area relies heavily on nonprofits and charitable organizations. And there's more than just money that needs to be considered when helping a charity. Getting your hands dirty, understanding what these charities and nonprofits are about, who they service. And, I've been fortunate in my life. I've worked hard, as a lot of people that I know, and I want to give back. I want to help less fortunate, and I want to help people that need a hand up, not a handout, but a hand up. Mm-hmm. And I've learned an awful lot through Salvation Army. When I was, and it's ironic that I would serve on their board, because as a child, after Camille, my mother was a Seventh-day Adventist. And Seventh-day Adventist, the church, partners with Salvation Army. And after Camille, I went with my mother to help the canteen of Salvation Army, to help feed in East Biloxi people that had nothing. And this is a story that really has helped me. I was 13 years old, and we're standing out in the street, no homes, trees. This woman comes walking down the road, totally nude, in shock. She had lost all her family members, her home, and she didn't know even where she was. And the women went and ran to her with a blanket and covered her up. And I saw how everybody just, they were huddled over this woman trying to help her. And it really, at 13, that made a very big impact on me. That how perfect strangers wanted to help another perfect stranger.
Yeah, it does affect you. I talk about it all the time on this show, that you got to have good government, you got to have good private sector, but you really need a nonprofit community second to none. And then it is the volunteers that come in and they fill the gaps. There's always gaps in the community. We're so much more aware of those gaps. And it's examples like you just gave, where you see it with your own eyes at a young age, at 13 years old, and it changes how you see it for the rest of your life. Exactly. I've always tried to be active in the community too. And when you get in there and you see with your own eyes the kind of people that it takes to make a community tick, it's very inspiring. It really is. It's kind of life-changing, actually. Absolutely. And you've always been that kind of person that's always going to be willing to get your hands dirty to make a difference. Hey, listen, we're almost out of time. I just want to ask you this. When someone's talking about you, when someone says, okay, the name Laura Hasty, what do you want them to think about?
Well, that's kind of a twofold. I would like for people to think nice person. And secondly, she'll do anything she can to help someone. And, I think that I just want to be considered a good person.
Yeah. Boy, wow, that's such a sweet thing to say. And I think people do say that. Well, in fact, I'm not going to say I think. I know. I know people say that.
Thank you.
You're a special person. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, you're not just an inspiration for other women, although you should be an inspiration to other women who are wanting to be courageous and start their own businesses and do whatever needs to be done to meet their goals. But you're an inspiration to anyone. And there's so much we didn't have an opportunity to talk about. I mean, my goodness, we could have taken 3 shows, Laura, with your contributions and your stories, but we're unfortunately out of time. But please pass along our greetings to your co-owner. She's worked so wonderfully behind the scenes all these years, but you guys have made such a dynamic duo.
Well, thank you, Ricky. I appreciate you having me on. I love your show. Great job.
Thank you so much. This has been Laura Hastings for the Ag Group, and have a great day.
Subscribe for free to the Coast View podcast on iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.